I'm Karen Phillip, a passionate advocate for doing good. I always knew I was going to have a career helping people, but I wasn't sure how. I've met some amazing people who seem to understand the what and the how of doing good. We often hear about their work, but who are they? I decided to have a space where they could share about their work and common sense steps to doing good better. So today you're tuned into Common Sense Steps to Doing Good, and with my guest Deidre Osei, who is a Jamaican who lives in America. Deidre, feel free to introduce yourself to everyone.
Most certainly, and thank you for having me as part of this podcast. As Karen mentioned, I am Deidre Osei. I am the, let's say, formal term founder, CEO of Talawah Impact Consulting, but as I call myself, an impact alchemist. And what that means to me is that I work with businesses, nonprofits, government entities, and what are the different ways that they can work together I would say, for lack of better terms, the greater good. Because if we don't work together as individuals, businesses, nonprofits, then we can't be able to move forward. It's not going to take one person or one entity to be able to do it. And sometimes it's just seeing the strategy and the big picture moving forward. And that's where I hope to be able to help. So that's what I do through my company, through education, consulting, and any resources that I can share.
And for those who don't know what Talawah means, could you explain it? Explain the name?
Yes, Talawah is a Jamaican term that I'm not sure if you've ever heard the phrase "me little but me Talawah," which means I may be small, but I can do great things. And it really shows the impact that you as an individual can contribute to bigger things. And it's also what I believe in, that with my company, I'm not going to grow it into this big conglomerate. That's not my vision for it. Yeah. But I believe the small things that we can do can contribute to bigger things. And I think anyone can relate to that on a personal and also on a professional level.
And I definitely know that phrase. I have quite a few people use that phrase to describe me. So I was very tickled when I saw the name of your business. And also, I've never heard anyone call themselves an impact alchemist. You want to just dig into that a bit, how you came to that title and what does that mean?
Yeah, so an alchemist is usually, you think from a metal standpoint, putting different alloys together to make, essentially merge into one thing that is stronger. And as I was reflecting on the work that I was doing, I was like, okay, strategic partnerships, these traditional words I was coming up with. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to drive impact, that we're moving the needle somehow, that we're making change. But I'm doing this by putting all these different pieces together. So whether it is, for example, I worked on the Barbie brand, and it's finding a nonprofit organization that you can bring girls together and role models and inspire them to believe in themselves. But that connection, if I didn't bring the connection between Barbie and Inspiring Girls International, then you won't see the movement of connecting with those girls and the impact that they're able to make together. So that's where I see my strengths, and the strengths of the company is seeing those opportunities to put pieces together for a greater impact.
I am a huge Barbie fan. I saw that movie one too many times, and I actually have my Barbie tumbler next to me. So I think we were destined to meet. Too many things overlapping.
Right?
I've always loved Barbies. I don't even know how many I had, but I had a lot. I spent a lot of my allowance money on them.
On Barbie? What do you like most about Barbie?
I love that she could have done anything. That it was a different wheel, that she could have. I had like the beach one. I had one that I think was a doctor, and then I could just escape into my own world and create a new world to exist and to just have fun.
Yeah.
And that was Bobby couldn't do anything.
Precisely, and that's their theme. Like, you can be anything, and then how you take that message into actually driving impact for girls who don't believe they can do anything and be anything. Because as you say, you can be on the beach, or you can be a doctor, or you can be a vet, like whatever it is. Through Barbie, you can explore that imagination, and how you bring that to the real world is one thing that I'm proud to be able to help that brand with, is bringing those opportunities directly to girls specifically.
Yeah, and as you say that, so like, how did you have this vision of doing good and contributing good? Like, what led you to this point?
Um, I would say it was all planned, and I had my 5 year and 10 year goals, but that would be a complete lie.
I was gonna say you were really lucky.
And you know what? Life never ends up like that. So
Mhm.
my story actually started in high school. I went to Immaculate Conception in Jamaica. And
Okay.
when we were studying economics, specifically macroeconomics, and talking about poverty and lack of education, you read in the books and you say, but it's simple, like just X, Y, Z, and we can solve these, but that's just not how society is. But I truly believe that there was a way that we can do it, and I wanted to dedicate my life to doing that. And I would say, on top of that, funny story.
Mhm. Ooh, okay. Mhm. Uh-huh. Mhm.
I got into Bryant University in Rhode
Okay.
Island in the US, and I was studying, I thought I was going to study economics, going on that path. But they didn't have the courses that I wanted to study:
Okay.
management and marketing.
Mhm.
Went through my courses, I volunteered while in school, so still wanting to give back. And then it come to the end, and I'm just like trying
Mhm.
to apply for jobs, not getting anything. Listen, even to be a Walmart greeter, I was trying to get jobs. And fast forward, I decided to sell everything that I have, order a barrel to come back to Jamaica, and I went in for an interview for this company that they said they were starting some give back department. And
Ooh.
I got interviewed and an offer for the job on the spot.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of my journey
Ooh.
within social impact, starting with the charity management department, Alex and I.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing.
Not a normal story that you will hear.
No, it's not. And it's also interesting that, I mean, so you said you wanted to do economics, but they didn't have. So what did you do in the end? What course?
I ended up doing marketing and management. So I did a dual course
Hmm.
and focused on that. So I had that marketing background and business mindset of how our business is going to be promoting their services and their products, which has helped me in this point in time, that if you're going to promote your products, how can you also use social impact to build your brand even more and get better value for the products that you're serving. So I think that background that I had in management and marketing served me so much more than I think the economics would have, to be in this space that I am right now.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few. You're calling it social impact, but I think in the Caribbean, we normally refer to it as corporate social responsibility. And then there's the whole discussion around the ESG. Um, yeah. And so there is, I could see the usefulness of having, and a lot of these CSRs are placed in marketing departments in the region, from what I understand. But like, how, explain for those who don't know, how having this marketing and being corporate, how does that equate to social good?
So from the marketing background, your role is you're essentially the brand keeper, for lack of better terms. However, the brand is showing up to society, to consumers, to customers, you are essentially that gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. So whether it is from just buying the product itself, how the product is showing up, how it is packaged, that's essentially your responsibility within the marketing department. Yeah. And the social good part comes into that as well, because it is also how you are seen to society. And I think especially now with our generation and even generations after us, there's a need and a want to see companies do more good for society. We're seeing that increase more and more. So how is it that marketers are making sure that they're positioning their company to support community in a very authentic way? So that marketing background really helps with that mindset of how you're positioning the company in an authentic but positive light, whether it is through the product and service directly, or it's through social impact or corporate social responsibility.
Okay, that's interesting. And what are one of the touching or experiences that you had since because you've been doing this for quite some time now, that you've had that on this journey that makes you know that this is the journey for you? Like this is how I want to do good. This is how I want to impact the world.
I would say there are always moments that you're like, why am I doing what I'm doing? When you're pushing to try and get some good done, you're getting pushback from the company. I think there's always going to be that tug and pull, but there are moments in the midst of all of that that reminds you why you're doing what you're doing. So one of the I would say biggest accomplishment or examples that I always share was when I was with Alex and Ani and we worked with Living Water International. Mm-hmm. And through that partnership was able to sponsor a corporate mission trip. So we got 10 employees to be able to go on a trip to Haiti, to Nicaragua, to Guatemala. And they stayed for a week in the country with the community, building well so that community could have access to clean water.
That's amazing.
Like the impact that you can make from that perspective, not only directly on that community, but for so many of those individuals who went on the trip, is the first time they even left the country, not even leave the town that they were on. They were so focused on their area. So they got exposed to so many things from that perspective. They got exposed to a different culture. Because if you go from the US to Haiti, in Cap-Haïtien, Haiti, and it's not like a commercial area, you're going in rural areas that don't have access to water. Yeah. That's a cultural shock, but it's also a whole new awareness and appreciation for what you have in the US as well. So it's moments like those that it's doing good in the community, but the people who are also doing that good and giving of themselves, you see the evolution that they have made and how they want to continue to do good moving forward. So it's this ripple effect that essentially, or domino effect that happens.
Yeah, tell me more about that. Because when you said ripple effect, I heard like a joy in your voice. You want to expound on that? How do you see but to me, that's a bit of an intangible joy, because you're not necessarily going to see that ripple, but yeah, that's what motivates you. That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially within this space, an important part is the qualitative impact that you're having, right? You want to be able to track that impact and measure it, but there's also, or the quantitative impact, I should say, where you can track it, you can put the numbers, we've been able to impact this amount of people, but the qualitative impact is also important, and being able to go back to individuals and say, how did this change you? Like, how does this experience impact your life? I feel like we don't capture some of those stories as much. And those are the ones that we need to lean into even more, because especially us within this space, those are the things that are going to keep us motivated. That you touch the life of a person in St. Mary, Jamaica, but you also touch the life of somebody in Kingston corporate setting as well, because they are seeing a whole new perspective of individuals around them. And it also just changes the way that they approach life. So I think that that feeling that they go through just expands beyond themselves, and then they want to just continue doing good. And I think that's why employee volunteerism and employee engagement is growing within companies as well, because people want to do it. They don't just want to go to work and just say, all right, I punch in my time and that's it. They want to feel that they're being a part of something.
Is that an American fact that is growing, or is that based in Caribbean research? Because I feel like
I
listening
would
to my
say in
no, I was saying I feel like listening to my friends in the Caribbean who are in corporate, they're like, getting people to volunteer is very hard. So
Yeah, I think it's going to depend. I would say one thing about Jamaica, when you look at the World Giving Index, Jamaica has always been within the top 10. So I think that's
okay.
also a nuance when you look at different countries of where they fall within giving. So not necessarily giving money, but helping a stranger and volunteering, Jamaica has always been within the top.
Okay.
And that's why you see like the 5K runs and walks, like you always have so many people who sign up for something like that. You see companies like Sagicor and the support that they give for these. You see that involvement come up even more. So I think it just depends on, I would say, the nuances per country. Even if I go outside of the Caribbean, Japan is huge on volunteering. So that is something that
Okay.
if you say buy this product and a percentage go back, then don't care about none of that. But if it's volunteering, then support that company even further.
Okay. Interesting. I never thought about that. Like, how do you volunteer? So I'm curious. You referred to the research about the index. Could you tell me a bit more about that? Because I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's I think it's an annual index that they look at various countries, and it also depends on how the countries participate, but they interview individuals within these countries on a scale of willingness to help a stranger, willingness to donate money, and willingness to volunteer time, and you're ranked. So like a country like the US has been high across all three areas. You have countries like Malaysia, they're always in the top one or two. So that's also like because of the global work that I've been doing and trying to interact with whether it is distributors and trying to have give back happen in Japan or Australia. There are always going to be nuances per country. And I use that as a guide to know what is the right way to approach that country based on what individuals are sharing of how they give back, how they naturally give back.
Oh, so then you use that to shape the programs based
And
on
the
and
strategy.
align to which brand would have what type of program. Okay.
Correct.
So you see, your way of doing good is completely different to my way of doing good. I'm over here reading proposals, evaluating proposals, helping with project management, helping with M&E for people to, as you said, to measure what is your quantitative, how many people was impacted. But you're doing your big picture is not necessarily tied to the sustainable development goals as much as it's tied to these other types of research. Is that correct?
It's tied to the sustainability development goals when you look at like the companies like causes that they're supporting, like how does that ladder up to the greater good. But I think how I use the World Giving Index, if a nation, and obviously these are averages, so if a nation is more tuned to donating money, I'm not going to tell a company to build a corporate social responsibility strategy around volunteering.
Yeah.
I'm not going to help them build that because that's not going to work. That's not what their customers and consumers want. They want to be able to have an opportunity to donate money. So how can you do that? Can you put a little thing at the cash register for them to drop in a couple dollars here and there? Is it a percentage of the sales of a product that they know that they're contributing to good? But if it is volunteering, what are things that you can show that your employees are supporting the community, but you also have opportunities for your consumers or your customers to do a beach cleanup with you, for example. So those are ways that I look to see what is the bigger picture first for that country, and then what are your goals as a business and how can we match that. So that's where the alchemist thing comes in.
Yes, definitely. I get it now. I get it because it's these different things that are coming together to allow you to do good, and it's a new way for me to learn about doing good, and that's what this whole podcast is about, right? Like that we don't have to be in a cookie cutter. Like you have to do social work, you have to do development studies. I mean, you did marketing, and you're still thinking about the social impact and the footprint that these corporations have. Like that's amazing. But do you have any challenges in executing your doing good?
I say yes, there are definitely challenges in the work, specifically in corporate social responsibility. And one of the biggest ones is finding the balance between a company's desire to make a positive impact and the need to meet business goals. Because at the end of the day, whether it is your head of marketing or just your CEO, there are financial pressures that arise, right? And as you evaluate, budgets are cut, and a lot of the time it's the marketing budgets that are cut first, outside of any other part of the business. So sometimes when a business genuinely wants to contribute to the social cause, they have to ensure that they look at their broader financial objectives first. And I think when working with nonprofit organizations, that's a realization that we have to make sure that we share. That, yeah, 1 year I may donate X amount of dollars, but I might have to cut it the following year because I have to rework my budget overall. Or I may not be able to do financial contributions, but I'm going to see if we can volunteer resources or employees can contribute to your marketing, helping you with marketing instead of you taking on that responsibility. So I think those are things that I've had to do to navigate those challenges and working with nonprofits that are at least open-minded to look in different ways that they can get support.
But how do you deal with that frustration? Because like if you get accustomed to working with a nonprofit, or you have your plans to work with a nonprofit, and then the budget is just cut. Like how do you deal with those frustrations?
You just have to deal with it. I feel like it is part of the course that everything is never going to be streamlined. And I think once you have that understanding, what I am always thrilled that I'm able to do is work from a very frugal perspective. So if I've had companies come to me and say, we don't have any money at all, but we want to do something. They want to build this whole website. So I was like, okay, you want to use your people's resources and you want to put educational materials out there. We can do that because there's no additional investment that you need to make. So I think it's all right if the budget is cut or if there is a reduction in the amount of resources. What can we do to still get the greatest impact out of that, knowing that you still want to do good? Because it's not like you're saying that you don't want to do it whatsoever. You want to do it, but there are other circumstances that are impacting you. So it's always being flexible and adaptable as much as possible.
Yeah, it sounds like you're super innovative, making something happen out of nothing. And then also I like the fact that you talk about like the in kind, because I know one of the issues that we struggle a lot in the Caribbean with, at first when social media came out, they're like, donors were like, we're not giving you any money, giving these nonprofits money because anybody can do social media. Now social media has evolved into a beast, and interns don't necessarily manage them anymore in corporate and big development agencies. But unfortunately, with NGOs, they still don't have that training, and that is something like I'm sure if nonprofits are allowed to be adopted by a marketing agency to be like, we'll just handle your visibility and communication, because we don't use marketing, we're visibility and communication. They would like that is because I've heard people suggest, oh, you just ask accountants to do your audits or registered accountants to do your audits, but I've never thought of a marketing team providing that visibility and communication to nonprofits. And I don't know how, but I feel like I need to figure out how to get that done in the Caribbean, because it's a need. It's a great need. A lot of us don't have, and during the pandemic, organizations were very willing to give subscriptions to nonprofits But now that we seem to be post-pandemic, it's
It's
not
not as
easy. I
much.
tell I tell persons, I'm like, oh, just go to this organization and they have the program just and you'll be able to register. Like literally they follow the steps I give them and instant decline. So
Wow.
they're stuck with the free version, which doesn't really give them that flexibility to produce quality or high quality work to stand on their own. And it's always like this chicken and the egg situation when it comes to visibility and communications, right? Like if I don't spend money, and I feel like I talked about this in another episode, but it's such a real thing. If I don't spend money on a project and I spend the money on marketing and communication, less people are being helped in this moment. But in the long run, I'm going to attract more donors, hopefully, and therefore more people could get help. But it feels uneasy to be like, oh well, I would only help 10 because 5% money has gone to my visibility budget.
Yeah. Yeah, you're looking at how are you impacting the community and beneficiaries at the end of the day when you're pulling money away from them.
Yeah.
And I think that's tough coming from a nonprofit space and something that I try to work with nonprofits on, especially when they're approaching businesses. I'm not sure if you do this from your perspective, is they say create like an asset inventory of think about everything that you have that could be a benefit to a nonprofit organization. The reach of the beneficiaries, the communities you serve is an asset that you have within itself.
Yes.
Maybe it is your leaders, maybe it is like just think about everything that could be even in the slightest way a benefit, and then also look at what are all your needs. It's not just money. So
No.
to your point, the communications and visibility, what are all the things? And then you see what are different ways you can approach a company based on your needs, knowing that you have this, you can repackage what you have to offer to them.
Can you go into that asset inventory? I think I know what it is. I love that you're teaching me so many new terms. I think I know what it is, but I want to be correct. So if I use your term next time, I'll be like, no, I know what I'm speaking about.
And it's one of the resources I'm going to actually have on my website as well, of like a quick step by step and a few examples of like what assets, but events, like if you put on an event, if you have connections with doctors. So if you're in like the health space, like your connections to doctors is also an asset. Again, as I was saying, with if you have a large group of individuals or beneficiaries that you support, those are like they are assets as well. And I hate putting them in categories. If you work with children or parents, they are assets. So it's these things that you don't necessarily think about. Maybe you have a large social media following. That's also an asset as well.
It's kind of like your stakeholders, putting your stakeholders in categories, and then also talking about that intangible heritage that most nonprofits have, that they've been doing this week for how long?
Yes, so it could be, so in terms of assets, a lot of nonprofits, at least in the US, they think about from an accounting perspective, like furniture and whatever, from that perspective that you're going to put in your balance sheet. That's not what I'm thinking about. When you're thinking about assets, it could be where you're located is an asset. Maybe you're in a central area that you can a company can use your space to do a community event and get to be connected with other people.
Okay.
So you see, you have to look at it from a different perspective, that you just naturally have this.
Yes.
But
yes.
it could be your other partners, that you are connected to a certain partner and another group wants to work with that partner in some format or another. So that's a way that you can do it. And I can give an example. I was working with the Pan Mass Challenge. They do a bike ride.
Okay.
They're a nonprofit organization, but because of the partners they work with, the Red Sox, which is a baseball team, some people can't sponsor the Red Sox directly, but they can sponsor the Pan Mass Challenge and have like a dotted line to the Red Sox. So those are the different ways that you can find that you have these little benefits in your back pocket, and it's really digging in to find those benefits to know, all right, this is what we can offer you, and present it to your potential partners.
That's really interesting, and thank you so much for teaching me once again. Learning so much today. Okay, so my next question to you is: you talked about your grandmother bringing you up in a way of keeping clothes and your community, and also the Talawah making that difference. So it seems to me that community means a lot to you. Could you describe like what does community mean?
Okay, to me, community means, I'm going to say from a very basic standpoint, togetherness. But I was having a conversation with a friend, and she said, you as an individual, you have your voice and you can make change. But when you talk to other individuals and all your voices come together, then you are able to make a movement. And that stuck with me so much because it's true that,
Yeah.
going back to what I believe in, you as one individual can do so much. But when you come together, that's when a movement starts. That's when you can really make change. And that's community at the end of the day. So they even say it takes a village to raise a child. It's not one person. It's not just up to the parents to do it. It's the teachers, it's the community members around all looking out for that child. And I think that's the impact that we want to make. It's not up to just the government to do something. It's not just up to one individual or one nonprofit. Everyone has to contribute to something if we really want to see the change that is happening. Um, I love when I see, like the other day, Bartlett Industries put a call out that they need to see other companies supporting the education sector. That they know they support it,
Yeah.
but they know that they can't do it alone. And I think that is so important that companies know the causes that they're supporting, but try and encourage more companies to join in,
Yeah.
lead by example. And I want to see more of that happening. And I feel that a lot of companies, they want to do it, but just don't know how to go about doing it. Or you see these big companies as a medium-sized company or an SME, you see these big conglomerates doing it. And you're like, I don't have those dollars. I can't do that. But it's sometimes just simple ways that you can do it. I see some small businesses, they might help a child get back to school supplies, or they might contribute to a drive that the church is running for back to school program. It's those small things that eventually contribute to something bigger.
And I think when you talk about making that movement, that's something that always feels a bit hard because it feels sometimes, at least to me, that we are facing the same issues but just a different timeline,
Yeah.
and it could get discouraging. But you're saying that when you're in community, they could encourage you and then also encourage forward movement. Yeah.
Correct. And you're all bringing different resources to the table. And I think that is the powerful thing. Like, you know your strengths, but someone else will come in an area that you may not be as strong as, and they are helping to push it even further. So if we lean on the power of, again, community, how can we make sure that we're pulling our pieces together? If you look on a very individualistic perspective, I may be good at organizing and might not be as good as baking, but we want to put on this fundraiser for the school. So I'm going to lean on you to bake. I might lean on somebody to help with cooking, someone else with arts and craft. But when we each all come together, we can actually put on an event, but individually, there's no way that can come together. And then it's the same thing. If we take a lot of the personal things that we're going through and apply it to this CSR space, I think we can see so much work happen. It might be the very positive mindset of in my mind.
I mean, it is positive, and I do want to ask you how we could join your community because you mentioned a website earlier. But before we get to that, how do you know how to play your role? Because, like you just said, I know that I'm organizing, but I can't bake, so I need to find somebody who can bake. How do we, when we're doing good, know how to find our partners in doing good, because a lot of the NGOs don't know which organizations have corporate social responsibility and corporate social responsibility versus government agencies or internet. Like what advice would you have about finding your community?
I'm going to start off by saying it's not easy. So it's not something you can like quickly Google and search. It takes a lot of networking and connecting and speaking to individuals. I would say, even from my perspective, I'm based in the US and I want to be able to bring a lot of my work into Jamaica because I see the opportunity that's there. I see that it's starting to flourish and I wanted to be able to educate even more. And what I'm doing is looking at different businesses, like doing the research. And I know, for example, not many medium businesses are going, but I'm looking for those nuggets of ones that are doing good and how they're doing good and tracking what causes are there they supporting. And I'm seeing women, education, children are coming up and climate change coming up more and more and more. So I know that's an area that a lot of people are focused on, right? And I think that's across the Caribbean as a whole because those are areas that are close to our heart, right? From there, as we mentioned, a lot of these roles fall within marketing. How can you connect with marketers within that space? And sometimes it's just to ask the question like, what are you guys doing in the community? Like sometimes it's just a casual conversation that you have. Sometimes you go on LinkedIn and you message just like, I saw XYZ. Is there anybody I can talk to just get to know and find out more about the work that you're doing in the community? I think so many times, especially when we're in this space, we put on this hat that we have to get the information that we need versus coming in as individuals and just learning first and listening. And then we can take that information to build a formal proposal, but just listen first. And I think that step is missed so many times to build that network, build a relationship, and get the information that we need.
Listen first, listen and then
Listen
act.
Listen and then
I think
act.
that is
Yes.
that is a very huge nugget there. And it takes bravery. And I mean, we became internet friends because you were brave enough to send me a message on LinkedIn. Because I've certainly never done that to any other any person. I mean, I've walked up to persons in real life, but not necessarily on the internet. Yeah, so I mean, I think those are two big nuggets that you put there, and that's something I probably will have to put into practice with building networks of just reaching out to persons and then listening to what they have to say, listening to what are the causes that they want to support and how there's a possibility of aligning. But most of all, because they're humans and that they deserve to be listened to. Yeah.
All right. I used to use this analogy when building relationships in the very early part of my career is that when you're working in the CSR space, it's like a marriage. In the beginning, when you're starting to talk with each other, you're in this dating phase. It's awkward in the beginning, you're not sure, but you get to know each other, what the business is passionate about in terms of causes, what your assets and what opportunities and benefits you can provide, and you try and find what works for you guys. And then eventually, when you get that partnership, you enter into a marriage, but you still need to work towards it because you're still growing and getting to know each other, and things will have to evolve in that marriage. But I always used to say, just think about it from that perspective. When you're just getting to know somebody, it's awkward. You're not sure how to approach this. You might be nervous in terms of what are the right questions to ask. It's almost something very similar because this CSR space is very subjective. We have to understand that and realize that. And it's very personal for a lot of us. And we need to bring that piece of us into these relationships in a way that will help, again, the impact that you want to make at the end of the day.
It's also another similarity because for me, I love to. My example of a grant proposal is that it's a love letter. And you're talking about this being a marriage, is the fact that it's a love letter to a person that you've never actually seen. And you need to bear all your information, who's your organization, what do they do, what is this issue that you're facing, and how you plan to face this issue alongside them and solve it.
Correct.
And you're saying CSR is like a marriage. You have to go through the getting to know who is the marketing person, what are the issues out there to their heart, and how there could be a possible alignment. So it goes back to the fact that humans run the show. Doing good is about humans. trying to make
Yes.
good for other humans, and nobody wants to be treated like a cash cow.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. That's what it is at the end of the day. So,
yeah,
as if you are on the nonprofit side and you keep that in mind, that at the end of the day, you're talking to individuals who are just trying to do their best with whatever resource that they have available to them. Um, and from the company side as well, that you recognize that these nonprofits are working their butts off to try and do so
yeah,
much
yeah.
because there's so much need out in society. Um, Once we have that understanding from both sides, then we come together as just individuals having a conversation of how can we make this the best partnership that we can make it together. And that's it.
Definitely.
I think there's so many complications, but if you simplify it as much as possible, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think if fundraising resource mobilization is an art as much as it is a science. And I'm not saying that art is just by the whim, but it takes time. It's not something that could be done overnight. Because if you listen to fundraising, which is like major gift fundraising, they talk about figuring out who your donors are, mapping them. If you talk to grant writing, it's the same thing. Who are your donors? When are their calls coming out? And now you're telling me for CSR, find out who the people are, find out what they care about, and that's the only way that you can go forward.
The right time to approach them? When are they discussing budgets? When are budgets time already passed? Like, are their fiscal year January to December, so that you need to be talking to them by September, August, September before their budgets close? So that timing is also important, but it's
Yes, it
getting to know them and understand them as quote unquote individuals. You're looking at business as individual, and then knowing you can then tailor what you have to offer to benefit them, knowing that you are getting a benefit in return as well.
All right, that is so true. So how do we can become part of your community? You just like drop that you had a website and you moved on. But how could we find your website? What is tell me more. I want to learn more.
Of course. So TalawahImpact.com is my website. So you'll be able to go on there to learn more about the work within the CSR specifically, but there are also resources that are there in terms of guides from the nonprofit side. How do you look about creating this asset inventory? How do you go about finding the corporations or companies that you want to approach? So one of the strategies, start with those that are within your inner circle. So whether it is employees that they may be connected to a friend who works at X company, like how do you look at that? And then from the corporate side of how you structure and you think about the causes. So just some guides and toolkits, but I'm also looking at what are examples of like medium or SMEs that are doing good in the community. So you can also see from the nonprofit side who you can potentially approach, but also from the company side and business side, who are some companies that you can look up to and to be inspired by as well.
And now I have to ask it if it's going to be tailored to the Caribbean sector, if it's just straight up American, because it's two different
So
worlds.
I'm specifically looking at, I would say right now, Jamaica as the examples that I'm sharing. So I'd say one of the first blogs is on Canopy Insurance. They were created by Grace Kennedy and the Musang Group. They're just approaching their 5-year, but they've already started incorporating giving back in their community, working with Salvation Army and donating products and going out in the community and being there directly with children. So yes, all the work there's some inspiration from what I've done in the US and what could be used within the Caribbean, but all the examples that I'm going to be sharing is starting off within
That
Jamaica.
sounds amazing, and I can't wait to check it out. And then I have a question that I ask all the guests. What advice do you have for future do-gooders?
For future do-gooders, the biggest advice, which I feel we touched on so much within this, is building genuine relationships. And in the Caribbean, which we saw, community is everything. And that same spirit applies to corporate social responsibility, and overall just social development work. So whether working in a business or a nonprofit, connecting on that personal level and on understanding your partner's goals is really what's going to drive that success. So by building these relationships, you're building trust, which if that doesn't exist, then there's no relationship, there's no partnership whatsoever. And you're getting an understanding of how you can really build an authentic collaboration. So genuine relationships, not being afraid to show up as yourself, as your authentic self, and try and understand individuals, I think is also going to be important. And don't be afraid to think creatively. I think this space needs innovative solutions. We need fresh approaches on how to talk about things. So please, like if you have an idea, explore it. Bring it forward to your team. Just think of different ways. And if it's something that you can't act on immediately, that's okay. But at least don't stop exercising that mindset of thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, I smirked when you said innovative because I feel like that's one of those ways that everybody's like, we need innovative thoughts, and then we're in a workshop again. We need innovative thoughts, and we are doing the same thing. So, what is innovation to you? What do you mean by continue to be innovative?
I think from my perspective, innovative can be something small. I think a lot of times people hear innovative and it has to be something brand spanking new. You could look at the workshop and maybe you add something a little different into a workshop, like a get to know you or like a little bonding. It's just something different in it. So what is it that is a little nugget that you can add to what's already existing? You don't have to necessarily come up with something brand new because I think that scares people. Yeah. Something that is too drastic, change is going to impact individuals in a different way. So what are small incremental ways that you feel that you can make a change to the work that you're doing to keep it fresh and new for people who are experiencing it?
Yeah, keeping it fresh. And it's not easy. That's not easy anyhow, because humans are creatures of habit. And once we get comfortable, once we figure out this works for us, that's it. But you're pushing us to step out of our comfort zone, to make honest friendships with people, and then also to think about new ways that we could do good, no matter how small it is. That's a big challenge.
Believe that we can all do it if we try and just push ourselves a little bit. Just one thing, one goal that you have, I feel that we can do, because I've seen it work for myself. I'm an introvert, and the fact that I'm out here telling people to go there and build relationships, and I'm reaching out to random people on LinkedIn and building relationships that I'm now on a podcast, it makes a difference, and we're seeing it live here. So because I've experienced it and I've pushed myself out of my own comfort zone to get to where I am now, that's why I preach it so much, because outside of that, I would still be probably that 13-year-old girl sitting in the back of the classroom, never raising her hand and never seeing anything. But like putting yourself out there, really believing in what you are passionate about and talking about it. Once people see that passion in you, that rises a passion in them, and it builds relationships from there. So share who you are is what I say.
And I think that's the best kind of advice that you actually listen and you could acknowledge that it's hard advice, but it's useful advice. So I thank you so much for sharing that, because as a fellow introvert, it is not easy going out there and trying to network.
Nope.
No, it is not. All right, so thank you so much for being on Common Sense Steps to Doing Good. And we look forward to having you again, and probably even doing a masterclass with you as we learn how to do good in various aspects of our lives.
Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to hearing all your guests and all the great that you're doing within the world.